Dino, good morning, mate.
Hey, man.
Thanks for coming. Yeah, I'll start with letting everyone know that you're Dean and I'm Dean.
Yeah.
So, well, maybe Dino and Dean?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, mate. Thanks for coming around. So we're here today for a pretty important reason, to talk about a very heavy subject that I know is a bit of an issue around the world. It's been close to both of us. So I know you specialise working with addiction, and that's what we're going to talk about today at length, the ins and outs and what you do here, how you help people, online programs, your book, which I've read. Absolutely fascinating. I just want to understand what drew you to Ubud and where did you originally come from? How long have you been here?
I've been in Ubud for 6 years now. I came from Australia. I was living in Perth for 20 years. And then I just wanted to step out of that competitive mode that a lot of people worked in over there and collaborate with people and do more. Like my business seemed to be all about me and what I did. And I wanted to, do stuff with other people and actually make a bigger difference. So coming to Ubud feels like, it was like the navel of the universe. Like people are so open here, wanting to collaborate, not competitive. So it felt like a really cool place for me to land. Yeah.
It is like that here, isn't it? I noticed as soon as I landed that everyone wants to sort of pick each other and move along. And I didn't feel like it was the case at home. Sitting in a line of cars lining up to work, I feel like it was not 1,000 members of my community. I felt like it was 1,000 competitors and everyone trying to figure out what everyone else is doing and get there before everyone else. And that really...
And even on the road.
Even on the road. And it was a symbol of what society's really like. That really broke my heart. So it was very refreshing coming to here and experiencing that. But you're originally from New Zealand.
Yeah, I left New Zealand when I was about 21, went overseas to the big OE, went through Europe, lived in London for a while. That's right. And then ended up in Australia where my twin sister was living. So.
Oh, yeah. I've got a twin sister too.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we got a lot in common.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when we first met, I just couldn't believe how much we had in common. It's very interesting, yeah. So the work that you were doing in Australia, is it the same work that you're doing here now? You're working with addiction.
It is now, yeah. Like I mean, originally I had my own construction business in Australia, and then I switched that, like completely got rid of that because I knew I was here for something else, for more. And I'd been through addiction and struggled with addiction. So I ended up working in a rehab center in Perth, like Holyoke. Which I loved, and I felt like I'd really found this place for me. I found my calling. I found like where I could give back, where I was useful, and I just felt like I had real purpose there. Yeah.
And you're still working with that today.
I do, but I do it a lot differently now. Like I work a lot more holistically now. So in the rehab center, it seemed to be all about stopping. And then people would just switch to something else. And because it was government funded, it was also then it became about the numbers and then the bodgy success rates to make it look good so they could keep getting funding, which I understand because they needed the funding.
So it was kind of like you've been clean for this long. Out. Next, like move the beds out of there.
They can come back and still do other programs. So it wasn't necessarily like that, but I knew, the success rates that they were marketing definitely weren't what was going on, I see. There was a lot of people who'd end up coming back and then they'd relapse and then they'd come back. And so my focus was like, I want to work more holistically with people, so we work on the, the mind, the body, the spirit.
Going deeper.
Yeah.
Not just, okay, this is bad, let's cut it.
Because then when you cut it, like it creates a bigger void. I mean, they're using it in the first place because they get a void. And then if they just stop it, then whatever that was helping them with suddenly creates a bigger void, So then they turn to something else. And
a big hole. Pharmaceutical drugs or any type of addiction.
Antidepressants to make them feel better.
Those things. I'll talk about them later.
Yeah.
So your addiction, your experience with addiction, which has given you such magnificent tools to work with people today. And I've seen your talks and I've never met anyone who's so well versed in this field and willing to share and help other people. Was that addiction, that experience? How long did that last for? And where was that in Australia? In those 20 years in Australia?
I was, and I didn't happen until later in life. So I was in my 30s when I really started to struggle with addiction. And first, it was like to methamphetamines. I hung around, bikies and parties where it was always prevalent and I, started to snort and And, suddenly feel like I had so much confidence and I was the life of the party and I was 10 foot high and bulletproof. And I never had that outside of that, So I started to try and fit in with these bikies and started to sell drugs. I started to deal for a while. And then I met a girl who was into needles, and I always said I'd never do needles. I was scared of needles. I hated needles. Never thought I'd do it. But one day I let her, convince me to do it, to shoot up. And then after that, I just started to use more and more, started to get by on my own supply to the point where I just was getting gear on tick all the time and not even thinking about how I was going to pay these guys back, heavy dudes, just using the whole lot. And so I started to really slide into that. So I did that for about 3 or 4 years in Australia, in Perth, and then I knew I just had to get out because everyone I knew, I tried to stop. I stopped for 3 months once, but I just kept running into people who had it.
Yeah.
And there were times where I felt really low and felt really down, and so it was inevitable that I was going to do it again.
Yeah.
So I ended up just leaving and going back to New Zealand. Because I knew it was really hard to get there, and I knew I didn't want it anymore. Like I was at a point even for the last year or so that I was using. I hated myself. I hated the drug. I hated the needle. I hated the fact that I was doing it, but I still just couldn't stop.
Yeah.
So I left and went cold turkey in New Zealand, which was, a real challenge. For 3 years, I'd wake up crying because I dreamed that I'd shot up again, and it was a real struggle. But I just switched the drug for the alcohol, and then I became an alcoholic in New Zealand. And then I colluded my partner in on it as well. So then she became an alcoholic, and then
which made you feel better about. Yeah, I've seen that so many times in the past. Yeah. I've got experience with drugs myself over the past. Excuse me. Nothing ever as serious as yours or as heavy as yours, but I've been there where people have said, "Here, would you like some of this?" And that, people close to me, and I just think, no, that's not a gift, my friend. That is not a gift.
And I think of the amount of people I've done that to, the amount of people I've talked into using and giving them gear. And
is that something you've worked through over the years to lose that sort of guilt?
Yeah, definitely. Because I saw a lot of them spiral out of control, and start to lose themselves. And but I never blamed, even the person who introduced me to it, I never blamed them. It was my choice. I always had a choice. I could always say yes or no. And I didn't choose. No.
That's right. We can't blame anyone, can we? Because you're in that place. You've made yourself available to be exposed to those types of things. Yeah. So it's kind of taking 9 steps, and then there's just one more. You're never in the supermarket buying food, and someone's there going, "Hey, man, have this," with some really cool music on. So it is. It's always the fault of the recipient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also sometimes it really helps. I've had, working with people with addictions where if they hadn't had that drug or the alcohol or whatever they were using, then they were seriously thinking of committing suicide. They had nothing else in their life, So it actually saved their life.
This is really interesting you talk about this. It was literally yesterday. I was interviewing someone for another podcast I want to do soon, and that's exactly what they said. Yeah. Experiencing trauma from youth and not regretting their history because it's put them where they are today, like yourself, very, very wise, very successful, beautiful people. So no regrets whatsoever, but they did describe how if it wasn't for the drug at that particular time, they would have potentially, gone on a worse path, a more tragic path. I'm not condoning the use of drugs at all whatsoever, but it is, I think, important to, really analyze, what they are and why people do them. Yeah. Which is a question I wanted to ask you about you starting drugs. You said you were hanging out with bikies and there was something missing and that made you feel full. And, if you can just open that up a little bit.
So I never felt like, even as a kid, I was a really sensitive kid. I'd cry at the drop of a hat, and I was always super sensitive. And my dad hated that because he wanted to toughen me up. So the more sensitive I was, the more abusive and he became. So I never felt like I had confidence, and I never ever felt like I fitted in. I was bullied at school and teased a lot. And so especially group situations, I felt really low self-esteem, low confidence. And then, so when I started to use drugs and drink alcohol, I noticed, I started to feel amazing. So, it makes sense. 1 + 1 = 2. So this makes me feel better. I'll take that. And then I started to feel really confident when I used. But the problem was every time I needed confidence after that, I'd need to use to get that confidence. So even if it was like going for a job interview, I'm really nervous. I can't handle it. So I don't think I know what I'll do. I'll have a shot, or, I'll have a quick swig of alcohol. And then that kind of gave me that confidence. So then the more confidence confidence I gave this thing, the less confidence I had when I didn't have it in my system. And it got to the point where I had zero self-esteem, zero confidence. And I had to use every day before I could even, let alone leave my house, but have people come and visit me or come and see me, without having it in my system, because I thought I couldn't handle life or any situation without it,
Yeah.
So I became really dependent on, and it just took away all of my power.
So you're talking about that part of you that was missing. I mean, there's a lot of people out there today that are feeling vulnerable, scared, afraid, and these are normal things. And so many people now are being medicated either with recreational drugs or pharmaceutical drugs because they're stressed at work, or they've separated with someone, or they're sad about a certain situation. And that the pharmaceutical companies, the bastard, they've done such a good job of. Who was it who said it the other day? It was someone on a Rogan podcast. They're a professional now. I caught 2 minutes of it. Said the pharma companies have done a very good job of making us feel like those normal emotions, which people say are negative ones, which I don't think are negative. It's just the opposite end of this. Yeah, they're just emotions. But here, no, you can't have them. Here, have some drugs. So I know what tools are available now for me to steer clear of that sort of thing. And I teach people how to do that as well. And you do. Yeah. But people at home now in the West that are going through this, who are feeling vulnerable, scared, stressed, what can they do to fill themselves up or make themselves feel confident or comfortable without resorting to these?
It's a great question. And actually, just on that pharmaceutical thing, I was working with a client in Australia yesterday I'm helping to wean off some really heavy pharmaceuticals, opiates, and, really heavy medication she's been on for a long time. And she's been on antidepressants. So every time she goes to the doctor for a checkup, this doctor, like she said, even yesterday, he wants to change my medication. He wants me back on the opiates. He wants to give me such and such, because I'm feeling really stressed and down. And she was like, no, I don't want it. But she said it's like almost a fight with him, because she's actually weaned off now. So she's in a challenging place, but she's doing amazing, and the journey she's been on has been horrendous, and then, I had a client recently as well who was on antidepressants, and she came and saw me, and I said, how long have you been on antidepressants? And she said 20 years. And I said, wow, what happened 20 years ago? She said, I went through a really messy divorce. And I said, yeah, but that was 20 years ago. Shit. And she said, yeah, but every time I come off them, something happens, and so my doctor says, no, you can't come off them, we have to increase your dosage or change the medication, and then give her some tablets for the side effects. And there's no such thing as a side effect, it's just an effect. So it's so well promoted, and you're right, it's about not feeling just genuine feelings, and it's okay to feel sad and depressed and lonely and hurt and rejected, and but the thing is, we try to avoid that at all costs. And we use pharmaceuticals, we also use coffee, we use sugar, we use food, we comfort eat, we use drugs, we use alcohol, we use cigarettes, and there's a myriad of things we use to avoid those feelings. So I think the thing that helped me the most was mostly actually starting to allow myself to feel, without necessarily wallowing in it or diving down. So meditation really helped me. Meditation was probably the biggest thing that got me on the path to learning how to just be. I did my first Vipassana meditation course, and you did one recently. Yeah. Really helped me to be with myself, to actually just not try to fight it, not try to change it, just to, just to feel what I'm feeling. Yeah. That helped.
I think that's number one. That's key as well, is to deny that idea that those emotions are a negative and they should be avoided. Yeah. And I talk to people all the time about depression and anxiety. They're actually with us for a reason. Like everything that we carry with us today, over hundreds of thousands, millions of years of evolution, they've remained in our gene pool for a reason. And a great analogy I tell some people who are in trouble is, if we didn't have depression, it's with us for a reason. It's a useful tool. If we didn't have depression, say, and the crops failed and we can't feed our community when we were tribal, egalitarian, if our crops failed and we couldn't feed the community and we all nearly died of starvation this winter, if we didn't have depression and anxiety, we wouldn't have the initiative to do something different to make sure the crops didn't fail next year so we could feed our family. Depression, if we didn't have depression and anxiety, we wouldn't take care of our young or fear losing them. We wouldn't caring about each other. Like, these are the things that keep us surviving as a species.
Yeah, and knowing there's a better life. It's that whole thing is, if we were happy all the time, how would we know?
Exactly.
Because there's no contrast.
Yeah, there's no contrast. There's no duality. Yeah. And anxiety, like I experienced anxiety horrifically when I was about 22 years old. I flicked my switch, and it was very, very scary. And I meditated my way out of that.
Yeah.
I cut sugar, cut caffeine, didn't drink, obviously didn't touch drugs for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And started to research, all right, what is this? It's not a demon or a devil inside me. Okay, what is it? Okay, it's a fight, flight, or freeze mechanism. It's being activated at the wrong time. Why is it being activated? Oh, I've been drinking too much. I've been partying. I'm working too much. I'm going to gym for 2 hours every night and taking
enough sleep.
Supplements, not getting enough sleep. Bang. Okay, but that's the same tool that's going to keep me safe.
Yeah.
If someone's aggressive to me, or there's a car crash, I need to pull someone out of a burning car.
Yeah.
Heart rate goes up, super vigilant, sweaty, strong survival mechanism. Yeah. Exactly. And now everyone's getting medicated.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's not good. Bang.
Yeah.
It's numb it out. Numb it out. It's the right tool being activated at the wrong time. So I think the first thing we need to teach people to keep people away from pharmaceutical and recreational drugs is that these are important mechanisms that are being activated at the wrong time. Oh, okay, shit. Yeah. You start to regain control.
Yeah.
Okay, this is me. It's not some other evil force.
Yeah.
And that is step one. I get really excited about telling people that.
Yeah, it's a natural part of life. And I think it's also that whole, how you think gives way to how you feel gives way to how you act. So usually the anxiety, the panic attacks, the fear is because there's we're thinking a certain way. And like you said, sometimes it's the lack of sleep, drinking caffeine, which sucks the moisture out of your body, partying. It leaves your nervous system wired, leaves your nervous system fragile and vulnerable. And then, of course, your survival mechanism has to kick in because it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel,
exactly.
Oh God, I don't feel held. I don't feel safe here. Yeah. So it's going to kick that into pump some adrenaline and endocrines and, endorphins into the body.
That's it. Yeah. To keep you on guard because something's not right in the system. Yeah. There's something else I always dreamed of going back to my high schools where I grew up and telling people that you don't have to be abused as a child to do drugs. It'll grab anyone. And everyone thinks, oh yeah, I'll be right. I can do it and it won't be a problem. Well, I can tell you, I've been around a lot of people who have had mild drug use and heavy drug use for a very long time. Yeah. Everyone hits that wall. Yeah. And what I'd like to do is go back to schools and do a presentation and say, you've got this beautiful computer, this great hut, this $3,000 Mac laptop. Yeah. And it's working perfectly. Would you open it up and go inside and start fucking around with the microchips and the switchboard, everything that's the electronics? Would you do that? And it says, hell no. That's exactly what drugs do to your brain. Yeah. You're going in and you're messing with your computer and all of a sudden, bzz, 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 and then those mechanisms we're talking about get activated.
And then they change everything.
Changes everything. Yeah.
They change the endocrine system. They change they change the hormones and what's been released into the body. They change how we feel. They change how we think. Yeah. That's a good analogy. I like that. Yeah. So it'd be good for young people. Yeah. I think that one. And it reminds me of that saying, one's too many, 100's not enough. Yeah. Like I was the same with drink, like one's too many, 100's not enough. Because if I have that one, I'll hit it hard, Yeah, that's exactly right. I've been and seen quite a few of your talks as well that you do here, which are awesome, very insightful. And there's something that you really emphasize there as well is you talk about the addiction being a lack of connection, which I wanted to talk to you about because I've been around, drugs and people who have done them socially. We've all got fantastic families and come from beautiful communities. So what is it? Addiction being lack of connection. What does that mean? So I think there was that was highlighted by this guy Bruce Alexander, who did a little study it's called Rat Park. I've seen that. Yeah, it's really cool. That was awesome. I don't know if I can put a link in my description for another YouTube clip, but I'll try because everyone should see that. Yeah, it's really cool. And he talks about like they had a rat in a cage with like one rat in a cage with just a bowl of heroin water and a bowl of normal water, and the rat kept going to the heroin water until it became addicted and then eventually died. And then so they studied this and their assumption was, heroin is addictive and heroin kills people. And so this guy, Bruce Alexander saw the study and it was like, that's not really fair because the rats got nothing else to do but to drink that water. So he created Rat Park, which is like a massive cage with all these toys and fun things for the rats to do. And they had the heroin water and the other water, but rarely did any of the rats go to the heroin water, and none of them became addicted or died. So they realized, like it's connection, so it's the actual fact that they had connection and fun things to do. They had community. So the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. But I also challenge that because, like you just said, I was in a relationship. I had a really good relationship. I had beautiful family. I had amazing siblings. I had some good friends in my life, and I still became an addict. So I think it's not necessarily just connection, but the connection with ourselves that we lose. So because I had no connection with myself, inevitably I lost all connection with anyone else, and I couldn't let people in. Even no matter how much love they gave me, no matter how much they tried to love me, I didn't know what that looked like, and I couldn't receive that. So I think that was the connection that was missing.
I understand. Yeah, not being connected with yourself.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in the West now getting up around heaps of people, no one's talking to each other.
Yeah.
Going to work, feeling like just a resource, like a bag of meat in a chair, working a job they don't like. So even though we are around a lot of people, we're still not authentically connecting with the people around us.
And especially the masculine, like men not talking to other men about what's really going on in our lives, pretending everything's okay, and on the outside, everything looks amazing because we've got a good job, we've got good money. Like I had that. I had houses all around Australia. I had toys. I had money in the bank, had my own construction business. So on the outside, I had an amazing family. Everything looked amazing. But inside, I was depressed. I was suicidal because I just thought, fuck, is this all there is? Like I felt like nobody knew who I was. I had no idea who I was outside of being a dad, outside of, my construction company. I had no idea who I was, and I had no purpose,
I've felt that. I've experienced that. Yeah. I know what that feels like. I've been surprised a couple of times as well, sitting with people who I idolized. And had all those things that you just described, just on the Instagram, not saying they were showboats or anything like that, very humble, beautiful people, but sitting down and just them informing me that they actually weren't happy, and me saying, I remember myself saying to them, what? Yeah. Like, you're living my dream, bro.
And you're
living everyone's dream.
Yeah.
What's going on? But start to talk about the stress and the anxieties and the pressure and everything. And that got me thinking about all the millionaires, billionaires, studies that have been done on affluent mood disorders in affluent communities. There's a book by Sebastian Junger. He goes into it as well. He's written a book called Tribe, and everyone should read that, especially men.
Cool.
All men should read that book. Tribe
nice.
By Sebastian Junger. Should put a link in there as well. And they've done studies on women in Haiti, which is one of the most destitute communities on the planet, and women in, I forget the city, it was a North American, highly affluent North American city, and the mood disorder ratio was higher in the affluent communities. Yeah. And it's studied that it is proportionate. The higher the affluence in a community, the higher the rate of mood disorders. Yeah. And that just blew my mind. And that's not theory, that's World Health Organization studies.
Yeah.
And that gets me thinking, opens up a whole new world, like we're talking about with communities, is what's missing. And that's why I enjoy being in Eastern culture so much. And I really enjoy being in Bali. Lived in India for a year. Yeah. They do have something here, and we think because we're at home with fancy cars and, we've got aircon when it's hot and big houses and all this fancy stuff, huge fridge, fancy everything. There's something missing. A lot of people don't have time to connect with their community, and there is no community. We don't know our neighbors.
Yeah.
A lot of the time we talk to our neighbors is when we're arguing over the palm leaves that are hanging over the fence. Yeah. And sitting here, I had a conversation with someone last week, and they said, a Balinese couple, lovely family, said, we want to go to Australia. I said, look, Australia's amazing. Go there for a holiday. Yeah. But I described to them what living in Australia is like. Yeah. And I'm not writing Australia off. I grew up there. I love the place. But there is a huge element that they have here in these poorer communities abroad that we don't have at home. And it's this time for each other. Yeah. They'll wave at 100 people in a day. They see their cousins, their brothers, their grandparents.
They look after each other's siblings and kids. And
and that is huge. And that's social cohesion. And that's what helped our species to evolve to where we are today. And the last few hundred years, gone.
Yeah.
The Anglo-Saxon culture just said, oh, no, the most important thing now is to earn money and have, enjoy the unbridled capitalism.
Work more, work harder.
Yeah.
Comes home, doesn't feel like, like the kids are in front of the TV or give them an iPad, so we don't sit and eat dinner together even.
There's no time.
It's like give the kid a screen so that they're busy and then I can just keep doing or relax or do whatever I need to do.
There's no time. And I've felt that. We moved, we moved from Bali. Sorry, it's from Australia to Bali. It's just to have some time and some space to work on myself, to have time to meditate and to go to the gym and everyone, at home, if they're really motivated, they can do that. Get up at 4:30 or 4 a.m. I used to get up at 3:30 a.m. to go rowing 4 days a week leading up to a comp. Yeah. And I had to do that because of my work and my family. Yeah. And how much pressure is that? How exhausted are we?
Yeah. And then go right through to the end of the day.
And go right through.
Come home knackered, no time.
Get home in the dark and then have to cook food. And here everyone's cooking for each other. Yeah. In places like this. Yeah. It's actually, time is a big thing, I think. Yeah. And just one more thing I want to say about that is one thing I did notice growing up as well is everyone was really busy, quite affluent, but we had this little short window to feel good. Yeah. And how do we feel good really, really quick? Yeah. We need to slow down and give ourselves time to feel good the right way. Take time to eat good food. Yeah. Take time to meditate, to read. But at home, it's why the club scene's so huge. No one's got time. Okay, quick. Bang, bang. I just got home from work. I'll see you at the club at 10. Douche. Yeah. Okay, I want to feel good in 10 minutes. Bang, bang. Jug drugs up the nose. Douche. Yeah. And then get back to work, go back in it, have one day recovery, pretend to be cool on Monday. Yeah. And then do the same thing week after week. Yeah. So no one's got time to be peaceful. Yeah. So I think, the number one message I think we could send today is find a way you've got to get some time, prioritize, earn less money, and develop more in here. Yeah. Well, I mean, most people don't have time. You have to make that time. Yeah. Yeah, you do. Yeah. I was in Perth. I was sitting on the beach one day and there was a Balinese guy sitting next to me. I was like, hey, bro, you from Bali? He was like, yeah, I came over. And I started talking to him about, how do you find it? What's it like being in Australia? And he said, I'm really struggling. He said, was he living there? Yeah, he was living there. He'd met an Australian girl and so she took him back. And he just said, it's usually the other way around. Yeah, it is. Sorry. Yeah. But he said he really struggled with there. No community, no connection. No ceremonies, he said it was such a lonely place for him. He said same as what you just said, they don't even know their neighbors or their community or even the families weren't talking, so they avoided family. So he was really struggling and he said he was thinking about coming back to Bali. Wow. Yeah. I've heard that story a few times of people who've gone and come back. Yeah. And for everyone at home that can't just up and leave, okay, I'm out of here and go sit on a beach somewhere. Yeah. Most of us can't do that. It's not realistic, but diet and exercise, slow down. Do we have to earn that much money? And I know it's easy to say because everybody's circumstances are different, but at the end of the day, I used to have a huge fancy 3-story house in the city and Range Rover and BMW and all that stuff. And then you have to maintain that. Yeah, so you got to maintain it. Put yourself under to maintain that lifestyle. I did the same. Look at what we had to earn a week just to keep all this, and now and not even own it because I'm happy with a suitcase with some ripped up shirts in it. I burnt out. Yeah, and just went no. Yeah, I can't do that anymore. And you start to see what's really important in life. Then I think that was the biggest thing I discovered when I came here. Like getting rid of all of my stuff in Perth was like, I remember the thought I had, because I used to come to Bali on holidays, and I thought, I wonder if because I heard there were expats living here, and I thought, I wonder if I could actually live in Bali. And my immediate thought was, no, you can't. You've got a house full of stuff, and you've got a car and bills, and I was like, oh yeah, okay. And then after a while, I started to think, hang on, why not? What if I got rid of my house full of stuff? No, you couldn't do that. So it was all this resistance that I had. And then when I started, I had cupboards full of brand new stuff that I never used, I had a shed full of stuff. I had a garage full of stuff, and as I was cleaning it out, I realized this is some of the stuff in brand new boxes that I'd never touched just in case one day, So then I gave so much away. And then the more I gave away and I sold some of the bigger items, I started to feel so much freer and lighter, Shedding skin. And same deal, man. Yeah. Shedding skin. Yeah. Literally. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. Having the time for each other is one thing, like we both agreed. But connecting in a way that's different to the way that we used to do it. Like how did you used to connect to your men when you got together? And
it was around alcohol, partying, drugs, talking about sports, cars, nothing deep, nothing real, nothing true, nothing about what was really going on.
Just chitter chatter.
Yeah.
Until the doors open.
Yeah.
And how did that
and
happen?
Then it shifted and changed. Like it was.
Oh, I mean, you chit chat on the surface like we all do.
And then,
but you go a little deeper.
Yeah. Usually it's when I was like wasted or, like when I'm drunk, and then the truth would come out. And I'd like open up and cry or, and talk about what was really happening. And it was almost like letting all of the stuff out that was really going on. But the problem with that is it was never taken as anything serious, because the next day I could, oh my God, I was drunk last night. Sorry about all that crap I said, but it was actually truth, but it was always written off as, drunk talk.
Yeah. So do you feel that people do want to connect? When we spend this time together at home, we really want to connect and we want to be close to each other. And,
I think we have an innate need and like this innate need for intimacy, for connection, but we avoid it like the plague.
Yeah. And why is that? Why do people, because I've seen that before for years, and you sit around with a group of people and be chit chat for 6 hours, and everyone goes home and thinking, well, we didn't really actually talk about anything.
Yeah.
And the times that we do, it's when there's something involved to really let everybody's inhibitions go. Why is everyone holding back?
I think it's a number of things, but I think it boils down to this like lack of, or fear of being judged. Fear of not being good enough, fear of not being loved, fear of rejection, fear of them thinking, I don't know what I'm doing, I can't handle myself. And the truth is, sadly, that's happened. We've experienced that in our life, where we may have opened up about something and then somebody's used that as a tool to turn around and bite us or throw it at us, as a weapon.
Yeah. So that's still happening today, because I feel in Australia, there's been a massive movement in mental health, and there's the Are you okay? And all those things, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
The ABC, Triple J have done a fantastic job on that, bringing that awareness too. And I noticed a shift with people around me, particularly in men, who were willing to connect without drugs and alcohol, and even checking on each other in the day. Like, hey, bro, how are you? I'll be there for you. There has been a move, but there's still... it might still be there forever.
Yeah. I think it's mostly the guys, because we think we have to handle it ourselves, and it's weak, to show weakness or to show vulnerability or emotion is weak, I think there's still a lot of that culture. And like the suicide rates, like 80% of suicides in Australia were male. And usually the people who are the ones committing suicide, a lot of the time it was the people we would least think, because when on the outside, everything looked amazing. I remember a friend of mine who'd committed suicide, who had an amazing business earning mega bucks, he had a network marketing business. He had an amazing girlfriend, kids. So like everyone thought he was incredible, doing really well. And he was so happy. He'd get up on stage and do talks with people. But I think that pressure, to maintain this facade that he had, like he just wasn't talking to anybody and connecting with anybody about what was really going on.
Playing that male archetype, because we are meant to be strong. We're meant to be dragging the beast through the door, and it's quite complicated nowadays, though, isn't it? We've got women in the house that are playing more dominant masculine roles, and working full time as well, so they're not performing the duties that they did over time. Solely performing them, just being housekeepers and caregivers. Now they're being pressured to go into work because life's so expensive nowadays, and everyone's living so extravagantly. Yeah,
and also because they want to, because there's an element
and
they're allowed to,
of
now.
course. Yeah, and they're doing a fantastic job of it. But we haven't. I feel the society has evolved in that regard. Yeah, but our heads haven't, our brains haven't, our mentality has not, and that's why the divorce rates are so high. Yeah. We've got men still sort of being required to be that man, inside and out, and bring the bacon home, But at the same time, at home, the caring duties are tenfold. Walking through the door and baby comes out, your turn. Yeah. That never used to happen in 40s, 50s, and 60s until very recently. So that started to happen, and I think people are swaying between responsibilities. Okay, well, who does what? Who does grocery shopping? Who puts the kids to bed? Who does this or that? And I see this over and over again in relationships around me. Yeah, it's a very confusing time.
And also I think there's also that. There's also the men who are tough and strong and the providing mentality. And then like I went the other way where I became this, this new age, sensitive new age guy, where I learned how to be emotional. I learned how to open up. And then I just became this almost like a wet sponge, totally abandoned my masculine side. And I just became a people pleaser, especially with women. And I think that happened around, like so many men have been raised by women now, with the separation being so high, and don't have a healthy male role model in their life. So they've been raised by mums and been taught how to be good boys, So we've got all these people pleasers, and I totally did that. And I think it's about how do we come back to having a balance of both, how do I own my masculine and my feminine? And then also to be able to, play with that in relationships. So not always to be the masculine, like to allow my partner to be masculine or feminine as well, to switch those roles, I think is really healthy.
Yeah, I understand. The connection we were talking about just before about people wanting to connect but not finding the right way to do it. You actually host the men's circles here in Ubud. Can you describe what they are and why they're so beneficial, and how I would like to see these things pop up in every city. If I went back to Brisbane in Australia, I would start one. A way for people to connect, being sober. I cried the first time I went to a men's circle here in Bali. Unashamed to say, because my connections had always been around alcohol. And it was just a done thing since I was very young. And to sit around with a group of men and have them just listen. And for 4 or 5 minutes, just listen, not interject or anything.
Not try and fix you or give you advice.
And no judgment. Wow, amazing! You saw, I welled up. Just went, this is awesome, because I'd never really done that before. And
how sad is that? Because women have this with their girlfriends. They can open up, they can cry, they can, they can be real and, and be honest with each other. And so what you just spoke about, a lot of men come for the first time and actually cry and open up, and they're like, they always thought it was woo-woo and, I didn't know what would happen in a men's circle. But afterwards, like 99% of men say, oh my God, this is what I've been searching for my whole life. I feel like this is, is what's been missing without me even realizing it's been missing. So I think the men's circle is just a place for men to come and be, however they are, everything's welcome, except for aggression, but everything's welcome, everything's okay. And it's just a place for them to share. And there's something magic that happens. And like you said, just talking, and having people listen, there's something really magical that happens there, where I think for the first time we get to be heard, like at such a deep level. But then also we open that up to get feedback from the other guys without advice giving, but they share their experience of what they've heard. And then to have that resonated back, like a lot of guys go, wow, I thought I was the only one going through this. I feel like this is like, I'm not alone. I feel suddenly held and supported. And so it creates this beautiful network. And so many times at the end of group, we check out, and I think one of the most common things I'll say is I feel held, I feel held. I feel supported. I feel connected. With the masculine and with men, which is something that I've avoided my whole life, because my perception, a guy said in men's circle once, my perception of men is they're either going to hurt me, they're going to steal my woman, or take my money. And what a sad perception of men that is. So here, I think having these men's circles it's just a space for men to come and be real, feel supported, feel held, also to share, but also just to support and hear other men, And I'd love to do that around the world as well. One of my dreams, my wishes would be just to be able to set up a men's circle in each place around the world, teach someone how to run it, go to the next place, teach someone how to run it, go to the next place.
Yeah. Guys at home, might giggle at the idea, but, I made a point with a few friends in the past of who we used to go out late and party with and actually really connected. And we said, hey, look, let's hang out without this stuff. Let's hang out without booze and party and late nights and staying up till 6 a.m. And that was really, really good for me. I think I'd encourage, if people don't have the ability to attend or start a full men's circle, we have 30 guys. You got 30 guys rocking up there on Friday nights. Start to connect with these people who you normally just get together and drink beer and go silly with. Connect with them outside of that. Do something else, and it feels strange the first time. I remember being with guys and it was weird, like, hey, we're not We're not partying. We're not at a nightclub or at a bar, or
we're not masking. We're not avoiding.
Yeah, or watch a footy game on Sunday afternoon, but don't drink.
Yeah,
we've got to start
and ask real questions. What's really going on? How's your relationship, man? Because sometimes we are struggling in relationships, and we might not have had sex for 6 months, or there might be anything happening in there, like disconnection, avoidance, abuse, anything happening in that relationship, and we don't talk about it. So to actually have that connection, and I think the way to get people to open up is by opening up ourselves, because that gives permission for them to do the same.
Yeah.
So we won't get them to open up by trying to get them to open up with us remaining closed.
You're exactly right.
Yeah. So sharing what's happening in my life. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's why I've heard so much and received so much over the years, is because I do. I don't just blurt my stuff to everyone, but I am honest. Yeah. As you are. But that's a really good point to make. Don't try and pull something out of someone. Yeah. It's your responsibility. If you want to initiate that, then you start.
And it opens up that space and gives them permission to do the same.
Yeah, it makes people feel safe.
Yeah.
The circles are just mind-blowing. Some of the stuff that goes on in there, it's just beautiful. Sometimes they're funny.
Yeah.
You've invited me to help host, because we split into 3 groups when we've got, say, 25, 28 people. And I'm honored to do that, to sit and basically just making sure the guidelines are met, holding the time, making people are adhering to the time and things like that. Because 2 hours, you're going to 8 guys, 2 hours, bang, gone. Yeah. And sometimes we could sit there for 3 hours. And some nights where they're really heavy, and there's a lot of tears or anger. Sometimes we just. It seems that everyone walked in and sat down together and has the similar topic. Similar
theme, yeah.
And we goes, I've been really angry lately. And bang, bang, bang. And everyone just connects really well. Then other times it's quite funny and jovial. And I want people to know that they're not always just sad and complicated and deep expression. Sometimes they're can be a lot of laughter in there, and also inspiring, because sometimes people feel amazing and they're sharing how amazing their life is, and then other people are like, oh my God, because we can also get hooked into that, into the, oh my God, things are so hard and the challenges and the problems, but then hearing and being around people who are actually also having an amazing life and living the lifestyle they want, and being with that helps us to tap into, actually, my life's not so bad, I've got some really good shit happening, and we start to focus on that as well. So it opens up both sides. It does, it can really pick you up. And I notice a lot of the time when it's finished, everyone stays there. Yeah. Chat.
Sometimes for an hour.
And then going out to dinner, I think last Friday night I went to one, and then I went 5 till 7, went out to dinner. I didn't get home till about 9:30. Yeah. So, wow, it was a big night just with guys.
Yeah.
It was really
cool. And no alcohol,
and no
drugs,
beers.
Yeah. So cool.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So what you're doing here now, your transition from, ex-user and whatnot, when did you, because I want to describe to people some of the tools that you offer and what you do. When did the transition come where you decided that you wanted to help people through addiction? Like when and why?
It was actually when I went to the rehab center. Like I'd done this amazing workshop with a guy that it was literally like somebody had opened my eyes to life for the first time. So it was like that core of everything that had happened in my life, why I became a junkie and alcoholic, a shit dad, shit partner, was all because of this one core that I had. And this workshop shifted that, like in one weekend. So I stuck around these guys and I was like, I'm going to find out what that is, and this is the work that I do now. But I think it was, then I went to the rehab center and I wanted to know why I'd been through addiction, So I thought, I'm going to go back and just see what it's about. And I actually did the program as a client first. I went back and actually sat as if I was still using it, even though I was clean then. And I really got to see why I'd become an addict, the history behind it, the family of origin stuff. And, like I got an understanding of, oh my God, no wonder. It was almost like it was inevitable given the path and the stuff that had happened to me in my life and my thought processes and my lack of boundaries. And, so it kind of really opened my eyes to how I'd got into that. And then I found, like I said, I felt like I'd found a place, where I really fit. Where I had purpose, and because of my history, because of my journey, like I really connected with the guys. It was like I felt like I really knew what I was talking about because it was my experience, So I felt like I really found a place where I belonged. And then, like I said, wanted to work more holistically with people. So it was actually in that, when I was working in the rehab center one day, I remember talking to a guy from Rio Tinto mining company, and he was wanting to send a couple of his guys down to do our program. And I said to him, dude, what about if we came up to you and did the program? He was like, oh, I'd love that. That would be amazing, and I said, maybe even we could do an online thing. And he was like, oh, dude, if you could do that, like we'd totally be up for that and obviously pay, they got loads of money. So I spoke to my supervisor and she said, oh, yeah, that's not in our business plan. And I was like, it's a mining company. Do you think we should maybe make a business plan to accommodate that? And she was like, no, yeah, it's not in our business plan. So I thought, I'm going to set up an online program to accommodate these people and also to accommodate people who lived in outback Australia, who couldn't access help because they couldn't come in and access help. And there's so many out there, that would get phone calls every day. So I started to develop this online program using all of the stuff that I'd learned in this rehab center, but also some of the other cutting edge, quantum physics, quantum mechanics. So the latest stuff that I'd learned, including this work that I do now. And I put it all together originally in a 12-week program. And then I just kept revamping that up, over the next couple of years. And so now it's like a 16-week program. Online addiction program.
For people who are currently addicts?
Yeah, for people who are struggling with addiction or even people who are coming out of it and want to know why they went through it, but more around people who are struggling with the addiction themselves. And it's not we don't focus on the drug or the alcohol or, cigarettes or pharmaceuticals. It's about... we focus on the void, so what's missing? How did they get there? Why did that happen? What do they do about it? So it's more of a life skills program.
And why is that so important? Because whenever I see people talking about drugs, they're talking about it's just now. Like, man, I'm doing this and this is bad and I've got to stop doing this. And no one's ever really, I haven't witnessed people in my experience and my work and communities really addressing that.
Yeah.
And talking about why. Why is that so important for people listening now? I didn't think
it was, because I was like that as well. Now I don't need to know about the past. I just need to move forward and get on with the future. But I think it really opened up my eyes to how I got there, like the family of origin, the role I played as a child, the having a lack of, an abusive father, but then the lack of a healthy male role at all in my life. And then it just really opened my eyes to how I'd gotten there. And the fact that I hadn't been taught how to set boundaries, I became this people pleaser and, this follower of masculine male, looking for my dad's love. So it really opened my eyes to how I became an addict, and then also what I could do to shift that and how to change that, and then how to move forward, So it kind of gave me this, I think, just stopping and moving forward, like I had this big, empty, like this book inside of me that I couldn't talk about, or that I didn't know how to explain, express, articulate, and it played a massive role. So that's where I felt like I still couldn't be happy because of all of this shadow stuff, dark stuff that I had inside.
So it was understanding what gap you were trying to fill while you got there. Yeah. And that empowered you to understand.
Well, and it also took away that need for anything to fill, without that void, there was nothing to fill. So I still had to, I had to still wean my body off, detox my body, cleanse my body, from the things that it was chemically addicted to. But it got rid of the reason, that I was doing it all, which shifted everything. Yeah.
Do you think is it possible for some people now, drug use is so prevalent? It's a big problem all over the world, pharmaceutical, recreational. Do you think some people are just getting high?
Absolutely.
And that's it. Yeah. Like there is no problem. Yeah, they're just getting high.
I would think not everyone who is an addict or who struggles with addiction has had childhood trauma, but I think everyone who's experienced childhood trauma struggles with addiction. So I think, I think some people just used to get high and to party, and that's what I thought I used. Like I was, oh no, I'm just partying. I just want to get high, but I had no idea until I started to open it up and realize actually it's not just to get high. It's because I'm trying to avoid something. The definition of an addiction is, they say in the rehab center, using an inappropriate behavior to avoid one's perceived reality. But I don't think it's always an inappropriate behavior, because it can be work and gym and, like exercise, spirituality, yoga. They can all become addictions. So it's for me, it's the misuse of any behavior to avoid our perceived reality, to escape, whatever it is, whatever's going on. So the high, I would always ask, then why do you need to get high? If I'm just using to get high, well, why do you need to get high? because there's natural highs in
People
life.
say, because it's fun.
Yeah, but so is a natural high. You know what I mean? A kid, like a little baby doesn't need to, or, like a young child doesn't need to use anything to get, to have a better high, because they're fucking high, most of the time. They have their lows and they're okay with that. They have their highs and they're okay with that, So it's that, why do I need that? And I have much higher highs now, I have amazing highs now.
So do I.
Way higher than I'd ever get with the drugs, because they're real, they're wholesome, they're fulfilling, Yeah,
and there's no repercussions.
Yeah.
It's just joy afterwards.
Yeah.
The fucking come down.
It's real, yeah.
Yeah, it's real. And walk away from it. Yeah. The next day you feel better.
Yeah.
Next day you don't feel like shit. Yeah. And that's what we were talking about earlier, is having to find the time to, it's hard work. It's to get healthy. It's hard work. You want big muscles, you got to go to gym and do the work. Everything in life we want to do, it takes time, and we've got to work for it. But when it comes to feeling good, people just go boom and take that pill. People would do the same thing. If you could just take a pill and get fully loaded at gym, people would take it, but it's not available. You've got to do a lot, to a degree, but you've still got to do a lot of work.
Yeah. And even that with the drug, I remember when I was using, shooting up and using alcohol to get high and then coming home. I mean, my family were the ones who were getting the worst of me. I'd be out with my friends partying, having a really good time, but then I'd come home, be hungover and feeling like shit for the next few days.
Drag your ass in the house.
And that's what my family got to experience. My partner and children got to experience this shit of a guy who was like, shut up, keep the noise down, like feeling like not wanting to go out and do anything or spend time with them or be present with them because I was feeling too rough,
Yeah, I understand. So the main sort of idea behind your 16-week course is going into that.
Yeah. In
that online program, is going into, okay, why are we there?
And also to help them to
how would you
wean
describe?
off.
Help people.
It's mostly that's to show people.
Are we setting
why.
Targets? Or?
Yeah, there's there's how to set boundaries, taking responsibility in each area of your life. There's it's all about. There's a lesson on grief, shame, depression. So how to let go of shame and guilt, and and then also how to step out of depression. There's how to have an amazing relationship, how to increase your level of self-worth and your self-esteem.
That's a big one, yeah.
I mean, one of the biggest ones I think
NA would talk a lot about that, wouldn't they? Yeah. Is trying to reattain your self-worth.
From the inside out, not from the outside in. Because when we do it from the outside in, that thing gets more and more power, So,
And I think the families around people going through this as well have a really big job and a big responsibility. Yeah. I've seen people go through addiction, and at that time when they remove that drug from their life, they can't be alone. Yeah. They can't be isolated. And at a time when they've probably burned all their bridges, I've seen that, lost all their friends, lost all their family, there's no one around. That's when they need connection, community, love, nurturing, support more than ever. Yeah. So what can families do at that time when there's so much resentment and bitterness,
Well, I think one of the biggest things is to get help, because what most people do out of love tends to push the person further into the addiction. So they end up enabling them.
What does that mean?
So it means, a lot of parents will, they'll make it easier for the person, so, look, come and stay home. You can come home. I'll pay your bills. I'll give you money, and so the person ends up still being able to continue their lifestyle. And we do it because we love them and because we care, but we don't leave them with the consequences for their actions. So a lot of people try to save them or they'll collude in the behavior with them because they don't want to feel isolated. I mean, a lot of couples sometimes, if one partner's using and the other's not, they get no connection time, no intimacy. So they'll sometimes use or drink with the person in order to have that connection, just to have some connection with them, So I actually developed another online program. It's a 12-week online carers program. So for people who are looking after people with addiction, because, they're mostly the people who would be looking for help and who are struggling the most, so parents, partners, siblings, friends of people, who are struggling with people because they don't know what to do. Like we're at a loss, and what we do tends to just make the situation worse. So it's all about how not to do that, why that happens, how to bring the focus back to you and focus on you, which then gives them something different to respond to,
Yeah, that's fantastic. I was really excited when you told me about that carers program, the support for families and friends who have people going through addiction. And is that a course? Like how does it work? So is it just a volume of information, or
it's an online course similar to the Addictionary, which is the 16-week program. It's like there's information and there's exercises in there as well. And I do a little video for each. So they get a lesson come out each week and they'll do whatever that lesson is. So the first one for the carers program is all about understanding addiction so that you get to understand what this person's going through.
I see.
Why, how, and then see them from a different viewpoint,
would that be the number one message? If you could give a message now to someone who was close to someone who was suffering from addiction, what would a key message be?
I think the key would be to realize that everyone's addicted to something. So, quite often what we do is we spend so much time focusing on them and their addiction. It's an avoidance, so that we don't have to look at ourselves as well, So one of my goals is to change the way we see addiction, because we have this shame, judgment, punitive model that pushes people further into addiction.
It does, yeah.
And creates shame and guilt and, and just isolates people. So I think by getting people to realize that we all have an addiction to something, and then if I can tap into what that is in myself, then I can understand it better in somebody else.
Wow.
It'll shift that perception of, well, then if we're all addicted to something, why would I want to shame people and judge people for something that I'm doing myself? So I might have an addiction to food, but because my son's got an addiction to alcohol, I'll spend all my time on him going, you need to stop drinking. And, all my focus becomes on him instead of me worrying about changing my addiction, So when I start to tap into what's going on underneath me wanting to eat or comfort eat, or, what's going on behind that, what's the void that I'm experiencing there. And then if I start to tap into that and delve into that, I start to understand him a bit better. And then I can just change myself and inspire him to change rather than try to make him change. Because when I'm trying to change him, he feels broken,
True. And deficient.
Yeah.
Life after recovery.
Yeah.
In my own experience, I had someone very close to me go through very heavy addictions, similar to yourself and your past. And there were times when I thought, this isn't going to work out. And even if it does work out, it's not going to be good. The message that I could tell someone would be, there is absolutely wonderful things that can happen on the other side of the most traumatic addictions.
Absolutely.
That I've read about and I've seen it firsthand. This person close to me is working hard in a beautiful relationship, earning money, paid off all their debts, alcohol-free, drug-free, won't even take Sudafed. When this person gets a cold, they won't even take that. Helping other people through addiction now, like you do.
Yeah.
I want to write his book. If I had time, I would write his book, because I nearly tear up when I talk about how the success and the beautiful man that's come out on the other side. And I know a lot of people in addiction would think that they've broken their brains and they're fried, even drug psychosis from methamphetamines and all those things. I thought, there was a time when I thought there's no coming back from that, but there is. The brain is so powerful and so plastic. It can come back. Need people to realize.
And we get a complete new body every 7 years.
Yeah.
So the only reason a new cell will replicate the genetics of the old cell is because there's still trauma or emotion associated with it. So when you get rid of the trauma or the emotion, you get a completely new cell. So this is why people are able to heal disease, cancer, diabetes, and also to beat it. Like I had the same. I had massive drug psychosis, and I think the thing to understand. So my whole thing about life after recovery is I notice a lot of people are stuck in recovery as well. So their whole life becomes about going to meetings and having sponsors, and that theory that once an addict, always an addict. That's bollocks. It doesn't have to be that way.
I haven't heard this before, because I know people that are in rehab now and attend frequently, and they're helping other people, doing really well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't consider them recovering addicts. I would consider them further down that food chain. Quite in a very safe zone and attending to support other people. But that, when you described that to me a couple of months ago, can you explain that to me?
Well, I've noticed, there's a massive community, and I've actually had a few people come up to me and say, my whole life feels like it's about recovery. Like I have to go to meetings all the time and having a sponsor all the time, which is cool because it also stops them. But I think if you stop going to meetings and stop having a sponsor, you fall off the wagon, then you haven't addressed the addiction. So they have that mentality that once an addict, always an addict. So I've got an addictive personality, so I'm always going to be an addict. And that's just not true, because when you get to the core of what that is, I'm no longer an addict.
I see.
You know what I mean? I'm not an addict anymore. I've beat my addictions. I've transformed my addictions. And I have a much better life now, a much more wholesome, fulfilling, amazing life now than I did even before I became an addict. So I found this part of me in this place that's way more fulfilling. It doesn't mean that I don't have, rough times and I don't feel sad and down and depressed and lonely and, I still have those emotions, but I just know how to manage myself a lot better. And like you said, having the things that I do, like I have 3 pillars in my life that my life really works by if I hang on to those pillars, and one's diet, one's meditation, and one's exercise.
I was going to say diet, meditation, exercise.
Perfect, yeah.
They're mine.
Nice.
And when I'm not doing them, I'm shit.
If I don't do one of those, the other 2 fall out the window.
Yeah. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really cool. And
it does.
It's mostly, a lot of it is diet for me. As soon as my diet goes out the window, I stop meditating and I don't exercise.
Yeah.
So diet for me, which is why I do a lot of fasting, like I fast a lot. I do coconut water fast. I do juice fasts.
And what'd you do? 15 day?
I did a 31-day fast as my longest one that I've done. 31 days.
The one you did a few months ago.
Yeah, that was 17 days.
17 days. And you inspired me and Chris and myself, and we did 7 days.
Yeah, amazing.
Coconut water fast. I had no food.
Yeah.
For 7 days, I drank water and coconut water for 7 days. Man, it didn't work well for me.
It's a challenge because your body's going to get rid of.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I think it was massive because I haven't done that for ever. So I think my body was just delivering. I had a couple of nights on the 5th and the 6th night where I was just I was in bed kind of like it was horrible, and I couldn't wait to eat.
Yeah.
And people said, be careful, ease back into food.
You went straight.
They said, people said, I'll just have soup, broth, and then soup, and then a bit of salad. And then you can work your way up to whole foods, So I sat down and I had a soup and a salad.
Oh,
I haven't had dessert. I didn't even eat dessert.
I wanted it all.
My friend was there just going, dude, you're going to die. You're not supposed to do that. You haven't eaten for a week. I had a kilo of food and I went through that full range I'm meant to ease back into over 7 days. Yeah. I do a certain degree of fasting again.
Yeah.
But
it's hard for people if they've never done it before. So I always recommend start off small, do a 3-day.
Yeah, 3-day would have been good.
5-day, then a 7-day.
Or
like I didn't start off on a 31. Yeah. Oh, soup fast is like you can do juice fasting, soup fasting. But they say for every day that you do on water or coconut water, it recalibrates a year of your life.
Wow.
So I noticed and then whatever day you have a healing crisis on, you go back that many years and see what was going on for you.
Yeah.
So on day 17, 18 and 19, I started going through all of these drug withdrawals. I could feel my jaw.
You're kidding.
I was
when
racing.
Was this?
This was the big one I did, the 31.
The big one a while ago. Yeah.
I was racing. I couldn't sleep at night. I was revving, and it was exactly, and I was like, oh my God, I remember this. And then I went and had a colonic the next day, and it was my 6th colonic for that fast. And the colonics therapist said, are you taking supplements? And I said, no. And she said, are you sure? I said, no, I'm fasting. She said, you got all of this white specks coming through your stools. So, and then I worked it out. It was exactly 17 years ago that I was a junkie. So it had stayed in my body for that many years and then came out when I did this fast.
Wow.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
That's incredible.
So they say it recalibrates a year of your life. So this is why and the other reason I fast regularly is it also shows me, the things that I'm addicted to. I might be addicted to sugar or, certain things, like fried food, or I'm comfort eating. So it really highlights what's underneath all of that. So by regularly fasting, I get to allow whatever emotions and feelings that I might be suppressing otherwise to come to the surface.
Yeah.
And it really helps me to clean out. And usually struggle for the first 3 days, 2 to 3 days, go through the same as what a junkie would go through, like detox symptoms, withdrawals, cravings, depression. And then after that, usually around day 4, day 5, you have so much more clarity, focus, energy. On day 20, I think it was, I went for a 10 kilometer run because I had so much energy.
Shit.
Because the most amount of energy is absorbed by the body through digestion, So when you're not digesting anything, your body can use that energy to then focus on elimination, rejuvenation and health and growth. And so you have so much more energy. Yeah.
Do you recommend in any of your work, people recovering from addiction doing fasts? At what stage? Because obviously now you don't want people listening to this who are 2 weeks off drugs doing a 7-day water fast. It's dangerous. So if anyone hasn't done fasting before, do your research, because you have to be careful with it. You can't just
you have to go
alcoholic one day.
Out of it,
alcoholic one day and then fast for 7 days the next. No, it doesn't work.
I have that in my advanced program. So I have like the 16-week program, and then I have another 6-week advanced program. So it's in the advanced program where I bring the health side into it.
A bit further down the track, it would be safe to do that thing as a cleanse. And there's a lot of different things we can do to cleanse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, Dino, man, I mean, we could sit here for 2 hours and talk. I know your work, and it's such a huge topic, and I hope we've delivered something helpful to an audience today. But in addition to this podcast, obviously in the description, like I said, I'm going to put in everything we've spoken about today. I'll put a link into your 2 programs. Nice. It's a dictionary and the carers program as well for support. Your book. What was the other one I was going to put in there? Sebastian Younger. Yeah, copy of the Tao. Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, really
this cool. King. Anyone going through addiction, please. Tao Te Ching. Yeah, wow. It's like $7 on Amazon. I'll put that on. But I actually read your book one night. Remember you gave it to me a little while ago, and I picked it up at 8:30 p.m. And I thought I'll just read a little bit before I go to sleep. I sat and read the whole friggin' thing. It just held me the whole time. Usually a book, there's at the end of the chapter, you're like, okay, I'll have a break and pick it up again tomorrow. I couldn't stop. It was just so consistent.
Awesome.
It was brilliant, man. I loved reading your story. Yeah, it's going to help a lot of people, and to see who you are sitting here today, after what you went through, I think it shines a really bright light for people that are struggling. Like they're not broken, are they? They're going to come back and shine brighter. So I want people to read this.
Yeah, thank you, brother. And that was the goal of writing it, was just if I could help one person to step out of what I was going through. If I can help one person do that, then that's worth it.
Yeah, it's a wild ride, man. We need as much support as we can. So being able to connect with each other authentically, without drugs and alcohol, and using the tools and the resources. There's so many there. So I want people to connect with you, and myself as well, to offer what I've learned and what we read and what we do, all the cleansing, healing, diet, exercise, meditation, massive, But there's a lot there, brother. So hopefully we can, we'll get it all out there. And
if anyone has any questions, they can leave
fire in.
Comments.
Comments are open on this as well. Nice. So thanks for coming in, Dino.
Pleasure. Thanks.
I'll see you on Friday at the Circle.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Awesome, brother.
Love you, bro.
See you, bro.